Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome in Salesforce Epics Hour. My name is Amit. I'm your host, and today we are going to talk about how to create and run tests for Salesforce Flow declaratively. And we have a great speaker, Ashish Agarwal, with us. Let me hand over him for his session and the presentation. Hand over to you, Ashish.
Thank you, Amit. So my name is Ashish Agarwal, and I'm a freelance Salesforce architect, trainer, and blogger. I am based in Singapore, hold 30 Salesforce certifications and 1,200 Trailhead badges. I'm an avid Salesforce blogger and regularly publish step-by-step how-to guides on Salesforce that can compress days and weeks of your learning into minutes. The URL to my blog is asagarwal.com. Now for this session, let's take a look at what we are going to cover. We will first look at a typical business use case. Then I'll walk you through the solution on how that use case has been implemented using Salesforce Flow. Once the flow has been built, I'll explain the challenges of testing that flow. And at that point, I'm going to introduce you to one of the latest features in Salesforce Flows, which is Flow Test. And we'll see a demo of Flow Test. And then I'm going to share the benefits, limitations, and observations on Flow Test. Okay, let's first understand the business use case. We have a fictitious company called SIA Enterprises that uses Salesforce for its sales department. SIA Enterprises categorizes its customers in 3 different account tiers: gold, silver, and bronze. Now, at each account tier, the customer is entitled for a base level discount percentage. And then there is an additional discount percentage at the opportunity amount level that gets added to the base level discount. The final discount will be the sum of base discount plus additional discount. Now, what the company is looking for is that when an opportunity gets created, they would like to pre-populate the discount percentage based on these business rules. So to make it clearer, let's take a look at this table. If the customer's account tier is gold, they will get a 10% base discount. Silver tier customers will enjoy 5% base discount, and there is no discount for the bronze customers. Then for the opportunity amount less than $100,000, there is no additional discount. For amount between $100,000 to $250,000, there is a 5% additional discount. And for amount greater than $250,000, there will be a 10% additional discount. The final discount percentage will be the total of base discount plus additional discount. What this means is that if there is a gold tier customer with an opportunity amount greater than $250,000, the final discount that they are going to enjoy will be 20%. And for a silver tier customer whose opportunity amount is between $100,000 to $250,000, their final discount will become 10%. So this is what we are going to achieve using Salesforce Flows. Now, how we have met this requirement is we have created 2 custom fields. One custom field is account tier, which is on the account object and is of pick list type. And we have created another custom field on the opportunity object. The field name is discount percent, which is of the percent type. And to pre-populate the discount, we are using a record triggered flow, which will fire before the record is saved into Salesforce. Let's take a look at this flow so that we understand this a little more in details. I'm going to switch to my Salesforce org, and I'm going to open the flow that has been created for this purpose. So let me open the flow. Now, this is a record triggered flow, which is going to fire when the record gets created in the opportunity object. And we have also specified an entry condition here, which says that the account ID should not be null for this flow to fire. This is because we are getting the base discount from the opportunity record. And this flow has been optimized for fast field updates, which makes it a before record triggered flow. Then we have created a resource here called discount percent. This resource is of number type, and we are initializing it with the value of 0 when the flow is going to start. The first decision element we are using in this flow is basically on the customer account tier. As you can see here, there are 3 outcomes in this flow: gold, silver, and bronze. The gold outcome will be executed if the value of the custom field in the account object is gold. And similarly, we are going to execute silver and bronze outcomes. Now, if the gold outcome is evaluated, we are going to add number 10 to the resource that we have created, which will mean that this customer will get a 10% discount. Similarly, silver customers will get 5% discount, and there will be no base discount for the bronze customers. Then, based on the company's business rules, we have created another decision element here, which is going to be based on the opportunity amount. So if I open this decision element, we have created 3 outcomes here: when the amount is greater than or equals to 250,000, when the amount is between 100,000 and 250,000, and when the amount is less than $100,000. And in these outcomes, we are simply checking the value of opportunity amount and deciding which outcome should be executed. If the decision outcome is that amount is greater than $250,000, then we are adding another 10% to the discount. So if I open this element here, you can see that the resource discount percent, we are going to add the value of 10 to this discount percent. And note that the operator that we are using is add, which is basically going to add the discount percent on top of what we have already determined based on the customer's account tier. And then finally, since this is a before record triggered flow, we are just populating the discount percent in dollar record variable. Dollar record variable here refers to the opportunity record that will cause this trigger, cause this flow to fire. And when the record gets saved into Salesforce, the discount percent will get populated automatically. Now, once we have built this flow, so if we go back to the presentation, here comes the challenge. Based on the business requirement, we will need to test 9 different test cases. We will need to test for different account tiers, which will be gold, silver, and bronze. And for each of these account tier, we will need to test 3 different scenarios based on the opportunity amount. Now, if I assume that it takes about a minute for a tester to test these scenarios, in total, it will take 9 minutes to test this entire flow and make sure that the outcome is as per our expectation. Now, note that this is still comparatively a low to medium complexity requirement. Tomorrow, if CI Enterprises adds another discount tier, or they want to add another additional dimension to the discount percentage based on the country, the testing time will increase accordingly. So let me show you how a manual testing will look like. I'm going to switch back to my Salesforce org. We'll go to opportunity and we'll create a new opportunity. Now, this is how your testers are going to test this flow. So I'm going to enter the opportunity amount. Let's call it Edge Communications, portable generator. I will select the account Edge Communications, who is a gold tier customer. We'll enter the opportunity amount as $300,000. Close date, I will set it to end of this month. And stage will be prospecting. Click on save. And then as a tester, I'm going to ensure that the discount percentage gets set to 20. Now, once I have tested this, typically I'm going to go to a test script document and I'm going to specify that the actual result was that discount percentage was set to 20. The status is passed. It was tested on 26 March, which is today, and it was tested by me. Now, this is something that the tester will need to do for 8 more test cases. And then they are going to update their test script accordingly. and will ensure that this flow is working as per our expectation. Okay, now that we understand how the manual testing of this flow will be performed, allow me to introduce you to flow test to make life easier for our project team, QA team, and users. What is flow test? Flow test is a declarative framework to test flows. You can create tests declaratively and execute it with the click of a button. Flow test was beta released in summer 22 and is in GA from winter 23 release of Salesforce. If you're familiar with Apex conceptually, flow test is similar to Apex test classes. The only difference is that it does not require any development or coding skills. There are 3 steps to create flow test. We will need to set the test details, trigger, and path. We will need to set the initial triggering record, and we will need to set assertions. But what is an assertion? Now, one of the important aspects of any automated testing is setting the assertions. If you're watching this session, if you're a developer watching this session, you're already familiar with the concept of assertions. But this may be a new term for admins and consultants, so let's understand what it means. Assertions in test refers to confirming that the outcome is as expected. For example, in this flow, we are saying that when the account tier is gold and the opportunity amount is less than 100,000, the discount percentage should be set to 10. So in setting the assertion, we will check that when we created an opportunity for a gold tier customer with amount less than 100,000, whether the discount percentage was set to 10 or not. Now let's take a look at how flow test works. So I'll switch back to Salesforce. I'm going to go to the flow. To create and run tests in flows, you need to click on View Test in the Flow Builder. This is the testing framework for record-triggered flows that was introduced in the recent releases of Salesforce. Since there are 9 scenarios that needs to be tested, I have already defined these 9 scenarios here, as you can see. So I can either run all these 9 test cases at once or run it individually to verify and validate the results. But before we do that, let me show you how to create a flow test. For that, I'm going to click on Create. The first thing I need to specify is the test details, trigger, and path. So I'm going to specify the label as account tier equals to gold, amount equals to $90,000. The API name will be populated automatically, and when Flow populates the API name for a test, it is going to prepend it with the Flow API name also. So I don't need that. I'll just get rid of that. And I'm going to copy the same thing in the description. And I will also say that the discount should be set to 10 because this is what we are expecting. And then we need to specify whether this flow or whether this test should run when the record is created or updated. Now, since this flow has been set to fire only when the record is created, that is the only option I can choose. So I'll go with that. And then we need to specify what should be the path that should be executed for this test. If you're familiar with record triggered flows, you will know that there are 3 execution paths: execute immediately, execute asynchronously, and execute scheduled path. In this flow, we are going to use immediate path. So that is what we are going to select here. The next thing we will need to specify is this initial triggering record. When we do the flow test manually, we will be creating an opportunity record, and that is what we will be doing here too. Now do note that this record that flow test is going to execute, it will be rolled back automatically once the test finishes. So it will not be committed or saved into Salesforce database at the end of this test. Now, since we are testing this flow for a gold customer, so I'm going to select an account which has been identified as a gold customer. I'm going to specify the close date. I'll specify the amount as $90,000. That is what we want to test. We'll give the opportunity name as Edge Communications. And let's say inverter generator. And then we need to set the state, so we'll set it to prospecting. Now we have defined the initial triggering record. Then we need to set assertion. Assertion will basically validate that the outcome of this flow is as per our expectation. So based on our business requirement, gold customers with opportunity amount less than 100,000, the flow should set the discount percentage to 10. And that is what we are going to do here. So for assertion, I will say the dollar record discount percentage, it should be set to 10. Now this becomes my assertion. Now let's run this test case and verify the result. So I'm going to save it. I'll go to view test again. This is the test that I created just now. So I'm going to click on run test and view details. The flow builder is going to show me the outcome of this testing. And what is nice about this is that Salesforce will show you the exact path that this particular test case took. So in the test record, I created the opportunity for a gold customer, and opportunity amount was set to $90,000. So the outcome for the gold customer was executed. And for opportunity amount, the other's outcome was executed because it was less than $100,000. And the final discount percentage was set to 10. If you look at the right side panel, you are going to see that this assertion is showing as passed. In the assertion, we mentioned that the condition is that record discount percentage should be 10. And when this test case ran, the discount percentage was indeed set to 10. So this confirms that this flow is working as per our expectation. Now let's simulate a failure scenario. Let's say that this flow has gone live, and after a couple of months, this flow needs to be changed. Maybe some more opportunity field needs to be populated. So the consultant comes to this flow, and the consultant wants to modify the flow. But by mistake, he or she changes this discount percentage to 15. He was supposed to change something else, but by mistake, he changed it to 15. So we are going to deliberately simulate an error that has been made in this flow while modifying it. Click on done. I will save it as a new version. And now because the discount percentage has been set to 15, that test case that we created should fail. How do I test that? Click on view test again. And I'm going to run test and view details. Now you are going to see that the assertion has failed. This is because the flow, this test case was expecting the discount percentage to be 10, but because of a mistake that I made, the actual discount percentage was set to 15. So rather than discovering such type of mistakes later in the process when users start testing, with flow tests, you will be able to execute the test during the build and fix it then and there when the test fails. Now let's go back here and change it back to 10. Click done, click save. We'll make sure that our test case now passes. So I'm going to go back here, click on run test and view details. And now the assertion will pass because I have corrected the mistake that was made. Now let's take a look at one more interesting thing in setting the assertions. The assertion that we executed was just checking whether the discount percentage was set to 10 or not. And that is what I have here. But other than that, you can also assert whether a particular flow element was executed or not. For example, We can assert whether the decision outcome goal was executed or not, or whether the decision element add discount based on opportunity amount, whether this was evaluated or not. How to do this? Let's take a look. So I'm going to go back to edit test. I'll go to set assertions. And here I'm going to add an assertion for a particular flow element. So under assertion, I'm going to select, I want to verify whether the decision outcome goal was executed or not. So I'll select the under decision outcomes, I'm going to select goal. I'm going to select operator equals to, and I'm going to select the value as true. This will tell me whether the outcome goal was executed or not. And then I'm going to also add another assertion to verify whether the decision element add discount based on opportunity amount, whether this was evaluated or not. So when I select this, note that the operators changes to was visited. This will just tell me whether that particular decision element was evaluated or not. So I'm going to select that. And I'm going to select the value as true. Click on save. We will run this test again. And now you can see that all the three assertions have passed, which means that the discount percentage was set to 10. The decision outcome goal was executed, and the decision element add discount based on opportunity amount was evaluated. Now, where is this useful? Where will you do this? Adding assertions like a particular flow element was visited or not, it will be quite useful in the cases where flow test will not actually execute an element. For example, if you're sending emails from flows, flow test will not actually send the email. So in such case, asserting whether a particular element was executed or not can be quite useful. Now, so far I have been executing the individual tests that I created. Now let's take a look at how to run all the tests. So I'm going to go to view test again. And this time I'm going to select all the tests that needs to be executed. And I'll click on run. And in less than a minute, you will see that all these 10 test cases will be executed. And immediately I know that this flow is working as per my expectation. This is something that the consultants or the person who is building the flow will do whenever they are making any modification, to make sure that whatever modification that he or she has made, it has not changed the outcome of the flow. Now, if I compare this with the manual testing that we did earlier, so in the manual testing, first of all, it will take a human to test all the scenarios individually, and that will take up to 9 minutes. But with flow test, notice that all these tests I was able to execute in less than a minute. But do note that creating flow test and maintaining it will take some time and effort. So there is going to be an initial setup cost. But the return of investment will start multiplying with each iteration of these tests, as you will be saving those 9 minutes that will be taken by a human to perform those tests. Okay, now that we have seen how flow test works, let's take a look at some of the benefits, limitations, and observations. Why you should consider flow test? What is the benefit? First of all, it makes flows more robust and reliable, especially when they are modified or enhanced. So flow tests will provide a guardrail against manual testing mistakes and oversights. It will reduce the testing effort by users. And while the initial creation of flow tests will take time and effort, the return on investment will multiply with every testing iteration, as you will be saving 9 minutes per testing cycle. And that is where this flow test is going to be beneficial for your company. Now let's take a look at some of the observations and limitations on flow test. For general, flow test is available only for record triggered flows, and it is available only when records are created or updated. Currently, it is not available when the records are deleted. Flow test supports immediate and scheduled path. Flow test supports for positive testing only. And the API name of the flow test must be unique across all flow tests across all flows. So if you have given the API name in one flow, you cannot repeat the same API name in another flow test for another flow. So something to keep in mind. On flow versus flow test, note that the flow tests are independent of flow versions. What this means is that, let's say if your flow has 5 different versions, and if you modify the flow test in one version, the modification will be available to all 5 versions. So flow tests are not tied to the flow version. Another important point to note is that if you are saving the flow as a new flow, it will not copy the flow test. So in your new flow, you will have to create those flow tests again manually. When you are creating the test record, you can create the test record for the current object only, which means that you cannot create test record for parent or child objects. To speed up the creation of test records, you can select existing data from the org, which is pretty convenient, as you do not need to manually specify the details to create the test record. If you are using debug to debug your flows, you can convert those debug run to flow test, which is again convenient. And creation of test records does not support any formula, resources, or variables. For example, you cannot set the opportunity close date to today plus 30 days. You have to hard code the value when you are creating a test record. For assertion, you can assert the $record variable. We did that when we were asserting discount percentage. You can assert the resources and the different elements of the flow, and we saw an example of this in our demo. You can create multiple assertions for a single test case, and all assertions must pass for the entire test case to pass. Under assertion also, you cannot refer to resources or variables or compare the value in other objects. So in the assertion that I used, I manually set the discount percentage to 10. I cannot refer to any resources or variables in that assertion. And if your flow test fails, you have the option to specify a custom failure message. Now for execution, you can execute tests individually or all at once. We had a look at that in the demo. What is nice about executing tests individually is that Salesforce will provide a visual representation of the execution path and the execution details as we saw in our demo. Records created or updated by flow test will always be rolled back. These records will not be saved in Salesforce database. For deployment, flow test is available as a separate metadata component called flow test. Flow test needs to be deployed explicitly. When you are deploying the flow test will not get deployed with that. So you will have to deploy it separately and explicitly. Unlike Apex test classes, flow tests will not run automatically on deployment. So you have to go to each flow and run the tests manually. Flow test is supported by chain sets and packages, and it is also supported by Salesforce CLI, using which you can retrieve and deploy flow tests. Here is an example of how that CLI command looks like. If you are interested in trying it out yourself, here is an exhaustive step-by-step DIY guide with screenshots on how to get started with flow test. You can access this guide from the QR code shown here. And that brings me to the end of this presentation and demo. At this stage, I do want to leave you with a quote from John Ruskin, who said that quality is never an accident. It is always the result of intelligent effort, and using flow test will be one step in that direction. Thank you for joining this session, and I sincerely hope that it was useful to you. Thank you.